There are lots of things to do in this magical open world.
He's shooting laser beams at me. Frosty beams.
And plenty of creative ways to approach your adventure. And there are lots of wild and wonderful things to see, including this rock man who is absolutely off his head. I wasn't expecting that one. I'm pumped for this one, people. I absolutely love this game. I played 100 Days of Tears of the Kingdom.
The most anticipated game of the year, Tears of the Kingdom. Oh my lord.
Me and my best friend Zelda headed down into the gloom beneath Hyrule Castle.
These tunnels are deeper than I thought. What could be down here?
Could be a Balrog of Morgoth.
I gained control of Link and he had a stupendous number of hearts, absolutely bonkers. As we descended, we came across ancient Zonai statues, evidence of a lost civilization, and I engaged in epic combat with some Zubats.
Ha! Get whacked, bats.
We discovered some murals depicting the birth of the Kingdom of Hyrule when the Zonai allied with the Hylians, and it showed a great war against the Demon King. Zelda took some happy snaps for posterity and we continued deeper. Eventually, we stumbled upon this severely dehydrated individual.
Oh, Tears of the Kingdom.
The fancy arm plus tear combo had been holding this great evil at bay, and now he was free. Despite his lack of a balanced skincare routine, Old Maid Demon King was quite capable of mischief.
Was that the sword that seals the darkness? The blade that shatters so easily against my power cannot save you from me.
He unleashed a great power, causing the upheaval, a world-changing event that literally made Hyrule Castle float. Zelda fell and I couldn't catch her, so into the abyss she went. The fancy arm caught me, saving me from the same fate, and that was the last I knew.
Fresh new arm, vibranium arm.
Your wounds were severe. I am relieved to see you escape death. Your arm, however, was beyond saving. I had to replace it, lest the injury endanger you further.
I collected the Master Sword and it was looking a little bedraggled.
It does 1 damage.
My new arm was capable of interfacing with this green terminal, which opened the door. I made my way forward, performing some 10 out of 10 dives before finding this chest.
Put on them pants. Put on that skirt, should I say. They're like Roman sandals.
Yeah. I emerged to find I was up rather high, on a floating island. So I did the reasonable thing and immediately skydived without a parachute. And this got me feeling some kind of way.
Yeah. Yeah, it is so hype.
We'll find out if Link belly flops or not after a word from today's sponsor. A big thank you to Honkai Star Rail. Here's what you need to know. This space fantasy RPG from the makers of Genshin Impact has gained more than 80 million downloads in the 3 months since its launch. That is a big number, and now a juicy update in version 1.2 is here. We can witness the epic finale to the story on the giant spaceship civilization Xianzhou Luofu. I hope I pronounced that vaguely correctly, but this finale will see various factions and powers come together for a decisive battle. The game is free, it's cross-platform, and as you can see, it's got iconic visuals. But more than that, the game's got some meat to it. It's a genuine RPG experience, from exploration to world building with rich in-game lore, to character progression, to strategic combat, where you have the freedom to build your own team and your own unique strategies with more than 20 diverse playable characters. Speaking of, there are 2 new characters in the mix. Blade, a wind-type swordsman who is something of a masochist. The more damage he takes, the higher damage he deals. And Kafka, who uses a glorious katana and submachine gun combo to take down her enemies. On top of that, in version 1.2, you'll face off with the one responsible for the Stellaron disaster as you explore 2 new maps, the Alchemy Commission and Scale Gorge Waterscape. New players, use my link down below to download the game, and once you're in-game, enter the promo code to get your hands on an extra 50 Stellar Jade. Okay friends, about that belly flop.
Don't belly flop, I warned you. Accelerate, hold R.
I began exploring, picking up some tree branches with which I whacked this soldier construct. I had a chat with this handsome fella, who handed over Zelda's iPad, which she'd apparently left to me. It had a map, and marked on the map was my first quest, to track down Zelda at the Temple of Time.
Sorry, big fella. I'm being cruel.
I continued on my way across the Great Sky Island, fighting soldier constructs and collecting a rather impressive assortment of twigs and sticks. I climbed the steps up to the Temple of Time, dispensing this nerd on the way. But when I attempted to high-five the green thing, the specter of King Raru, the first king of Hyrule, appeared out of nowhere to let me know I needed more power before I could access the temple.
Source of the right arm. That's a strange way to describe someone.
I needed some sacred light in order to power up, so I was sent off to investigate the 4 shrines of this island. I got my hands on my first bow on the way, and I climbed up to the first shrine. And I gotta say, I was a big fan of the whirly greeny blue stuff. It pleased my eyeballs. Rauru awaited me inside, where he granted me the first of my new arm's special powers.
Ultra Hand. Grab and move objects, rotate them, and stick them to other objects. What?
I used my new trick to bridge this first gap, but the second gap was a little too wide for just the one slab of stone, so I attached 2 together.
I love it. I love it.
And then the final puzzle, a beautiful hook platform that took me to the final altar, where I earned my first Light of Blessing. Back outside, I got busy making use of Ultra Hand to make a truly janky bridge, but it ain't gotta look pretty, it's just gotta get you to the treasure. And by treasure, I mean...
Oh. It's a Korok. It's a Korok.
There are 1,000 of these little nerds to find around Hyrule, and each of them grant you a Korok seed, also known as a golden poop nugget. I did one of these ones.
Oh no.
I did some of these ones. And found these big floaty box thingos that I could move around to help traverse between islands. In games like this, I am a compulsive explorer by nature. I don't know if anyone can relate, but I was intent upon searching every inch of these floating rocks. I found Korok number 2 under this rock, I engaged in some unsuccessful hunting of these shaggy emus, and I made a box barrel stack for some reason.
It's a masterpiece.
I demonstrated my cooking expertise, whipping up an energizing fruit and shroom mix, and I was impressed to see a recipe menu.
Oh, okay. We got some recipes, man.
And in the evening of day 2, I found this little guy with a giant backpack, no doubt full of snacks. He needed help getting to his mate by the green smoky fire over there.
Just straight up attach him to this. Alright, let's go, little fella. Attached him to it with a bunch of booger.
I earned Korok seeds 3 and 4 for my troubles. I then made a deliciously janky raft and made my way across this expanse of water.
Chicken wings.
I headed into shrine number 2, where Rauru granted me the fuse power.
Attach something to an equipped weapon or shield to enhance it.
This added +2 damage to the sword, and it made it quite good at destroying big rocks. Next, I found a wonderful fire fruit orchard, and I learned I could fuse literally anything from my inventory onto an arrow. I attached one of them fire fruits, and shot at the flammable supports holding up this chest. I had an epic fight with this captain construct before noticing these spikes, which added a juicy +5 damage when fused to a weapon. I also fused a stick to my shield. Seems good. I collected my second Light of Blessing and carried on my way. I collected Korok seed number 5 atop this fat tree, and I joined in this Chu-verse construct melee using a rather long fused weapon.
It's so long.
I stumbled upon my first cave, in which I found some expected Zubats and minerals, and an unexpected whatever the hell this is. I fused a Keese eyeball to my arrow, which causes it to home in on the target, and the weird spectral creature fell to its death. But not before shooting some bubbles at me. And upon death, it dropped a bubble gem. I had no idea what this was, but it sure looked pretty. Toward the other end of the cave, I found the archaic tunic.
I was gonna say I'm no longer nude, but I'm kind of still nude. Let's be honest.
I emerged to find these guys with a big fan, a Zonai device that I can activate using power from these energy cells I received earlier. I didn't play around with the fans yet though, because I got distracted by this jumble of floaty platforms that I used to get into a fight with this long fella, and up the cliff face to this giant hollowed out stump where I found Korok number 6. I then got to business, crafting a most glorious vessel.
Hey, what's going on? Why are we turning right?
My second attempt was somewhat more successful, and I made it across without even wetting my Roman sandals. I smashed my way down into this little area where I found a balloon pop Korok.
Yeah.
I came upon another camp of constructs, and I almost died when this crafty fella whacked me with his barrel sword, and then I found this cave with tracks leading into it. I made an unnecessarily elaborate cart device with triple fan action, and it performed beautifully.
What happened?
This cave was completely dark, so I used these bright bloom seeds to light my way, and I collected a bunch of Zonite, whacking away with my rock hammer at these mineral nodes. I also found my first on-the-go Zonite devices, 3 fans. I fused a minecart to my shield, and then whipped out one of those fans and used it to proceed to the next area.
Beautiful. Oh, what is that thing? I don't like the look of that thing.
There was a big honkin' gacha machine here, and when I inserted some soldier construct horns, it pooped out Zonai devices, including my first flame emitter and portable pot. I found another hapless Korok who was sorely missing his best buddy, so I used a fan cart to reunite them, and I was very proud when I managed to get this hook fan cart monstrosity working.
Go, 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 go. Yeah, easy, easy.
I headed into this cave, and I was planning to do some cooking, but I accidentally waited by the fire until morning.
Whoops.
And I made some cold-resistant food out of some spicy peppers I'd found. I headshot another innocent bubble frog and stole its gem before climbing to the other end of the cave to this snowy area. But I turned back for now as I had unfinished business.
Oh my gosh. Oh! Oh!
The Flux Construct's weak point was this fancy looking cube, so that was my target. Except it went floaty mode, which made things a little tricky.
What do I do with him? He's just being a UFO. It's not fair. Can I use my skill on this guy? Oh, okay, I understand.
When I used Ultra Hand to wiggle the weak cube, I was able to create an opening for attack. And the big robot's next strategy was to go cube mode.
Yeah, get some.
Rinse and repeat, and victory was mine.
Get some. That was so sick. Ooh, what's this?
I couldn't pick up this spinny construct core, so I was confused for a second before I realized I could fuse it to a weapon.
Plus 10. Look at this thing.
I cooked up some more cold-resistant food and headed into the snow. I spent an embarrassingly long time baffled by this dandelion, before finally realizing I just needed to catch it before it hit the ground, which earned me my 10th Korok seed. I fought a frosty chew.
Ow.
And after defeating this fella, I fused a flame emitter to a stick.
Does it emit flames?
I found my first bomb flowers, and encountered a rather ugly wall slug. I used my flame whip to stun it so I could whack its pimple, and this was going well until...
Oh!
Round 2 was more successful.
Easy. And you dropped a whole dang chest.
It had an opal in it. I emerged once more into snow, where I found this big icy wall that was too slippery to climb, so I made this glorious tree trunk ladder which helped me get up to shrine number 3, where Raru granted me the Ascend ability. This one is pretty self-explanatory, and it's certainly a great tool to have when exploring the world. I ascended my way through the shrine and earned my 3rd Light of Blessing. Back outside, I used Ascend to access a most glorious puzzle, the infamous Circle of Rocks, which I completed to find Korok number 11. Except that rock placement is pretty dodgy, so I'm not sure I deserved that one. I found a bunch of wings and a launching platform, so it was pretty clear what had to be done. I placed one on the tracks and soared through the skies like a majestic falcon. Except not that majestic, because I crashed into a pond. Having completed all 3 shrines, it was time to climb the steps back up to the Temple of Time, where I high-fived the terminal and was rewarded with a rather majestic view of this cool door opening.
Alright, is this a big old tear? Sure looks like it. I've got a mine cart on my back.
I shook hands with the floating Zelda and learned the recall ability.
Reverse an object's movement until it goes back to where it was. You can stop the reverse movement at any time.
I immediately made use of this to reverse the direction of these big wheels, allowing me to proceed into the next room. But I wasn't strong enough to open the next door, so Raru sent me off to tackle a 4th shrine. This shrine was an opportunity to flex the recall skill, as I reversed this raft up the waterfall and lined up these spinning hands so that the door would open. I tracked down a couple of Koroks, a dive into the circle Korok, and a sparkly Korok atop this giant lily pad, and then I soared. I prayed to this statue of the goddess, earning my 4th heart, which gave me the strength to open the stubborn door. I approached this golden orb.
Uh-oh. I think that means there's orcs nearby.
I gave the decayed master sword to the orb.
Oh, it's sending you back in time. Is it? Or forward in time? Back in time. Oh my gosh.
In response to the time-traveling sword, this furious dragon shot skyward, tearing a hole through the clouds, and suddenly I had access to the world below. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I skydived without a parachute. I found a rock Korok right by the water I'd splashed into, and I found a reserve of building materials helpfully supplied by Hudson Construction, which I used to make a questionable vehicle.
Let's go. Let's go.
I hit a rock, and my batteries ran out in like 10 seconds, but it sure was good while it lasted.
I'm not sure about this car I made. Tree headbutted me. How dare you?
I continued exploring, collecting any items I came across, and engaging in glorious combat with some bokoblins, stealing their weapons, and of course collecting their monster parts, which are good for fusing. I also destroyed any crates I saw, as these often drop arrows, and arrows are at a premium. I snuck up on a horse, which I rode to the edge of the Hyrule Field chasm.
What is this?
It is a big old hole. I stood on the goopy stuff, and old mate warned me that the gloom makes you sick. I also tried to push this bloke in the hole, but he had sure footing, so unfortunately he didn't plummet into the abyss. I headed into this nearby shrine. It featured some puzzles where I had to use Ultra Hand to rotate objects in order to make them fit through these holes, and then use those objects to climb my way forward. It was basically a tutorial to make sure you know you can rotate stuff. I still managed to struggle.
We did it.
When I emerged, I noticed another shrine in the distance, and that was enough for me. Off I went. And as midnight arrived, I witnessed the Blood Moon's rise. This respawns any slain monsters, so all 8 monsters I defeated so far got their second chance. I explored these ruins, finding a Korok in the fountain and unearthing some chests. And I got myself slightly in over my head when I assaulted this monster camp.
Bro, there's so many.
I managed to take out a few, but this blue fella completely outplayed me.
Oh, what? He headbutted me with his horns.
On attempt 2, I went in blazing with some bomb arrows, and I fled to this rock so the little dinguses couldn't reach me. And after using up almost all my arrows, I finally took out the monster forces, finishing with a well-timed dodge into a flurry rush, which I was quite proud of because I'm kind of uncoordinated when it comes to combat.
Hello.
This bloke Addison with the gorgeous hairstyle was intent upon placing this sign advertising the Honorable President Hudson. He was having a little trouble keeping it upright though. I tried to help him, but my giant tree trunk strategy was ineffective. I headed into this shrine, which featured some truly outrageous puzzles. I mean, obviously you had to get the big ball to hit the big honkin' circle, but what mad recipe was I supposed to use to achieve that? Though in reality it wasn't actually that bad. I just fused this outrageous fly swatter on this spinny thing, whacked the pylon, and it went slap, unlocking the door to receive another light of blessing. But I foolishly completed the shrine before solving the bonus puzzle on the right side, and when I re-entered, the whole shrine had reset. So I had to do the first puzzle again, and for some reason this time it took me 3 times longer. I was in there for like 15 minutes, people, it's ridiculous. But finally I got the first puzzle done again, and then the second.
About now. Let's go. Get slapped into the circle, you silly dingus.
And I was wonderfully rewarded for my efforts.
Give me a break. What? What? Restores like 2 stamina. Great.
The shrine had taught me about these stakes that can actually be fused into surfaces a little. And I found some out here, so I had another crack at helping this bloke out with his sign. It was a success.
We love you, President Hudson, you handsome devil.
Addison informed me he planned to put these up all over the place.
So I'm gonna find this idiot around trying to put signs up and I'm gonna have to help him. I love that.
I hopped on a wild horse and decided it was finally time to go where the game wanted me to go. Lookout Landing. I was greeted by these 2 fine gentlemen who were amazed to see me, as I'd been missing for a while. They sent me through to Pura, the head of Lookout Landing.
Now where have you been?
She wondered if I was a ghost, but after I explained what had happened, she sent me off to investigate the castle to see if I could find Zelda. I paid a visit to the emergency bunker in the center of town. This is the hub of the game, if you will, a home base kind of vibe. Back upstairs, I visited this store and sold some shiny rocks so I could afford the remainder of the Hylian set.
That's the classic look we love to see.
I headed towards Hyrule Castle, and I of course got sidetracked exploring. I found a Korok under a rock, I found a Korok under a rock in a dilapidated fountain, and I made this majestic contraption with which I helped another President Hudson stand tall. I headed into this shrine, which taught me how to dodge in combat. Techie stuff, believe me. And when I was crossing this bridge, I spotted a ring in the water below, so I said,
who can resist? Impeccable form.
I continued up towards the floating castle, and I eventually reported to Captain Hoz. As we chatted about the dire circumstances we found ourselves in, Zelda materialized atop this tower, and she ascended and turned into a giant beam of light. Questionable behavior. I'd spotted someone who looked like my princess, who I thought lost to the darkness. So obviously I was alarmed by these strange happenings. Nah, I'm just kidding. I simply shrugged and randomly climbed a giant pole to find this little dingus. Korok number 20. On my way back, I found this marvelous chest.
1 rupee. Let's go.
Pura was bamboozled by the strange sighting of Zelda, and she'd heard of similarly strange happenings all over the world, so she wanted to send me off to investigate. But first, we needed to activate the map on my Pura pad, and for that, we needed to make use of this glorious tower.
Pew! Sick. It's one way to get a scan of the area.
And so I unveiled my first area of the map, the first of like 15, because this map is flamin' huge. And fortunately, Pura had given me a paraglider before shooting me into outer space, so I wasn't doomed to become a pancake. And she sent me off to investigate these 4 locations as a way towards achieving the larger goal of tracking down Princess Zelda. I had a chat with Robbie Goggles and Joshua, who is the leader of the expedition into the mysterious depths.
Could be evidence that a mysterious people once lived in the depths.
Robbie told me to meet him at one of the nearby chasms, as it was time to head down into the gloom and see if we could find further evidence of this mysterious civilization.
I really want to look in this. This this creepy nonsense.
There were some roof-crawling horriblins in the creepy cave, and they slapped me with their giant sticks, but I took them out, with my key approach to combat being getting headshots with the bow as this stuns enemies. I earned a chest with a spiky spear, some bomb flowers, a bunch of bright bloom seeds, and yet another bubble gem from yet another spectral frog. It seemed there was a bubble frog in every single cave. I continued wandering, poking some red bokoblins, some dead bokoblins, and popping some balloons. Korok number 21. As the clock ticked over into day 13, I saw a shooting star land in the distance, and so I headed towards the beam of light to collect it. I ran, and I ran, and I ran, and I finally realized.
Oh bro, it's so far away. Yeah, I'm not going all the way over there. Never mind. Wait, why is it going right? I don't understand. It's just doing donuts. I've just realized something. This wheel is on backwards. The arrow on this one is pointing the opposite way. Come on. Yeah, come on. We're heading straight for a cliff, but that's fine.
Look at my makeshift steering wheel on the front. That is a genius touch, I know. I reunited Dingus A and Dingus B, Korok 22 and 23. I headed back the way I'd come and entered this shrine, where I made use of my newfound ability to place all 4 wheels pointing in the same direction to complete this puzzle. And I'm not gonna lie, the next puzzle stumped me for ages, because I was stubbornly trying to make it work with wheels placed on the bottom side. It turns out you just needed one on top, and that was that, another light of blessing. I used recall on this falling boulder to zoom up into the sky, where I found a floating island with a large zonite charge in a chest, and then I found these nerds, who were perplexed as to why the monster forces they were out to conquer had disappeared. That was me, lads, I soloed them, no big deal. And then it was time to jump into the chasm down into the depths.
Oh my gosh. Yo, how deep is this?
I was genuinely amazed. An entire area underground, the same size as the enormous overworld. Dark, creepy, and full of treacherous gloom.
Look at these weirdos. Goodness gracious me.
I spied some weird blue spirit thingos and some skeletal horses before heading off towards where Robbie had set up camp. I threw bright bloom seeds as I went to illuminate the way.
And what is the deal with this? Oh, is this gonna explore the map down here?
Yes indeed, the light roots illuminate a small area, and reveal that same area on the map. I collected puff shrooms, muddlebud, and bomb flowers as I continued on.
Oh, what are those?
I don't know what those are, but they tried to eat me, and they dropped a bunch of zonite, as did these gloomy bokoblins that appeared out of the darkness to harass me. This moblin too. They'd wandered over from this camp, and now that it was clear, I was free to avail myself of yet more zonite. When these two nerds jumped me further along, it was a rough day. My usual strategy is to just eat heaps of food to regain health, which kinda means it doesn't matter if I suck. But gloom damage can't be restored with normal food, so I was on 1 heart, and my meager combat skills were not enough for me to survive my panic.
That's a big fail. I need to get more confident with combat.
I took out this arrow-clued nightmare bat thingo, and another camp with more clusters of zonite before reaching a second light route. Robbie was here, and he'd found a statue, so he unlocked the camera on my Puripad so I could take a photo of it and return it to Joshua. I collected some of these pose, I took photos of some stuff, and added the images to my compendium, which tracks the hundreds of items and monsters in the game, and I fast-traveled back to Lookout Landing. Joshua was thrilled to see we discovered further evidence of an ancient civilization in the depths, and she was determined to continue investigating. I headed out exploring, and when I spotted this fort, I of course had to invade. This fella had very impressive rock armor that I had to break with my rock hammer.
Whoa, where'd you come from? Big boy? Oh!
Yeah, so the big boy whacked me dead. On my second attempt, I took a stealthier approach, making use of this extremely long sword to deal big damage.
That makes him kinda easy.
There was a silly goose in this cage, so I rescued him, and I claimed some loot from these 3 chests. I also fused this giant spiky ball onto a sword, and it added a juicy plus 15 damage. I next assaulted the monster base on this natural bridge, sneaking up on another sleepy big boy and hitting him with a sneak attack. I was scouring the land, looking for fights, chests, koroks, caves, whatever, I didn't mind. I found a well with pumpkins in it, and a bridge with a hinox catching some Z's. These are boss mobs that can be defeated with a fairly simple strategy. You just gotta shoot him in the giant eyeball, and while he's having a big sook nursing the eye, you slap him in the groin with your spiky ball. Across the bridge was a blue bunny signposting the presence of a cave nearby, so into the cave did I go. The double like slugs look like nightmare fuel, but they're pretty easy if you hit their big pimples and stun them. I ascended onward, and this cave was actually quite large.
I found climbing gear in a random cave. Let's go. Alright, so I definitely need to explore caves that I find because they could have genuinely juicy gear in them.
I of course collected this cave's bubble gem too, before dealing with a pesky rock and pesky balloon idiot so that I could complete this circle of rocks in peace, earning another korok seed. I then headed into the shrine atop this cliff. It featured some windy puzzles. The updraft, the raft, the seesaw plus updraft combo to get the chest, and the elevator. Shrine number 9 complete. I continued nosing around the area west of Hyrule Castle, and I stumbled upon a curious tree stumpy thing. I ascended through it and earned another korok seed.
Yeah.
I found some ruins with a well to explore, featuring some more lac-lacs and some shiny mineral nodes, and I rode a boulder up to this floating island from which I surveyed the land, trying to decide which way I wanted to go. I headed north, crossed this big canyon towards this stable, and after a quick poke around the well to claim 50 rupees from this chest, I headed into the nearby shrine. Inside, I exercised my elite construction skills.
What a beautiful hot air balloon. Bet you there's something rubbish in the chest anyway. 1 opal.
And with some glorious ballooning, shrine number 10 was complete. I chatted to the stable master who gave me 2 pony tickets and explained I could earn more by visiting other stables and making use of their services, and I could spend them to purchase some interesting rewards. And I made a wonderful discovery.
Hey, I got black butt.
These are my horses from Breath of the Wild that carried over. I reacquainted myself with the Shadowfax before buying some arrows off my best friend Beetle, and heading out to investigate this enormous geoglyph. Impa was here investigating too, as these glyphs clearly had a story to tell. We ballooned up to get a better view, and as I paraglided back down, I spied this strange pool of liquid, and when I interacted with it, I was shown a vision.
What the heck is going on?
Oh, dear.
That's Raru, isn't it? Back in the past when he was alive.
You two founded Hyrule? And you're the king?
My name is Raru, King Raru of Hyrule.
King Raru? And Queen Sonia? But that must mean...
So this confirmed it. Zelda had been sent back in time, all the way to the founding of the Kingdom of Hyrule. Oh, and there was a sneaky Korok hiding in the glyph too.
Look at these boys. They love it. Now give me Muddle Bud. Fighting each other. Get the big fella to kill them all.
Muddlebud confuses enemies, so this conga line of dinguses was ultimately laid low by vicious infighting. I continued north where offering an apple earned me a Korok seed.
Stop chasing me, you silly angry trees. Oh, we got some ancient constructs business happening here. And then we got these idiots too.
I instigated a giant battle, and this absolute unit with the flamethrower took everyone out.
Get some. Get some taste of your own Oh, I just can't. No! No!
So I had to fight all those nerds again. I headed towards this Skyview tower, sat upon a rock in the middle of a pond. And once I climbed up to it, I did the whole get shot into the air song and dance, unveiling this area of the map.
There's a whole business over here. Can I get to that?
So it turns out getting shot skyward by the towers is a great way to visit Sky Islands, because I could indeed get to it. I wasn't really sure what to do though, until I finally found my way down to this island at the bottom of the spiral. I caught a ferry, a great find as these will restore me to life should I die, and I bought some goodies from the gumball machine, including my first balloon and time bomb, and I decided to see what 5 large Zonai charges would get me. It got me lotsa. I chatted to this handsome giraffe and I was teleported all the way above the spirally islands. And I was instructed to dive through the rings. My skydiving maneuverability wasn't good enough to hit each ring, so some tactical paraglider use was necessary, but I completed the course.
What is this? That's a big chonker. Is that a shrine?
It is indeed a shrine, and with a time of just over 22 seconds, I earned myself another reward. The glide shirt.
Increasing the wearer's ability to glide while they plummet from the sky.
Inside the shrine, there was some bow and arrow combat training, teaching me how to slow time by whipping out a bow in mid-air to headshot these nerds.
Guess we go?
I was supposed to catch up to examine the descending light, but I failed to do so I just ended up falling all the way to this weird mushroomy area. I fast traveled up to the shrine and tried again, and though I left it kind of late, I got him, and Korok seed number 29. These ruins seemed important, but I couldn't figure out what I was supposed to do here. I did find another Korok in this triangle of logs, at least. I headed north. I made use of Ultra Hand to fix up this random structure and find myself yet another Korok, and I headed into this shrine. This one was all about getting the big ball down to the bottom. I did one of these ones.
It worked!
I got sidetracked for ages creating these janky platforms so I could get across to this chest, where I found a crappy bow, and I repurposed one of those platforms to get the ball down the final railing. And honestly, I have no idea how that stayed on, but that was another light of blessing in the bag. I now had 8 total, so I headed back to Lookout Landing and prayed to the goddess statue in the emergency bunker, where I cashed in the light for 2 stamina upgrades before wandering off aimlessly once again, to the east this time.
You know what, I haven't seen that idiot that holds up signs for a while. Where is that idiot that holds up signs? Hold up. He's right here.
I used this absolutely glorious contraption to help President Hudson stand tall once more, and I hit up the shrine, another combat training one. This one taught me that I can throw stuff, including fire fruit, at enemies.
I'm a master of throwing fruit at people.
I followed a trail of flowers atop pillars to find myself another Korok, and I spotted something most glorious.
Look at this. Look at this.
I had a quick chat with this smiling rock man, and then...
Hold up, what is this? No. Where'd it go?
It would have been wonderful to attach that rocket to the Korok. Alas, I wasted it. So I got him across the river using a less dramatic technique. I entered this cave that housed a stone talus. And to defeat these rock giants, you gotta slap their pimple. So I got to work doing just that. But I suffered slight head trauma when I attempted to walk through the big fella's legs, and he sat on me.
Oh no, what did I try and do that for?
I came back in for round 2, and this time he went down.
Luminous stone talus heart. Plus 21?
I found the bubble gem and another fancy chest. This one with barbarian armor in it, which provides a boost to attack damage.
You can change into that when we want to fight. Beautiful.
In this hollow log, I found Korok number 35. And in this giant hollow stump, I found a scary demon that made me weep bitter tears.
What the heck? No. He's got me. Let me go. What the heck is going on, man?
It was at this point I decided I'd better flee.
Oh my lord.
After that terrifying encounter, it was all dandelions and sunshine as I found Korok 36. And I realized I'd wandered all the way around to where the Battle Talus and his goons were patrolling the road, so there was only one thing to do.
We're at a standstill, guys. What are you gonna do? What's your plan here?
Ah, no! I used my bow to shoot the fleas off. And honestly, you'd think the giant would be thankful to have been freed from his parasites, but he continued trying to kill me. So he got what was coming.
Oh yeah, I'm using your brother's corpse to destroy the crap out of you.
His heart wasn't luminous, so it only gave plus 13 damage, but that was still pretty juicy for this point in the game, so I was pleased. I built a bridge so I could solve another Korok puzzle. I assisted President Hudson with his posture once again, and on day 22, I continued satisfying my need to explore. You know the drill. Manipulate some constructs and bokoblins to fight each other, help Viz Dingus with yet another sign, spend 5 years trying to climb a pole in the rain, including building a ridiculous structure so I could ascend, all to be rewarded with 3 wings, and heading into a well to help this silly goose fix his ladder. I also cleared another cave of horriblins, earning some tasty gems, including another bubble gem. I headed over to the wetland stable, and in the well there I found this weirdo well enthusiast, who was stoked to find that I too am a massive fan of wells. She tasked me with finding all 58 wells around Hyrule, and since I'd already found 6, she rewarded me with 60 rupees. I earned a couple more pony points at this stable and used them to get the towing harness, and I received a quest to clear the monsters nearby, and this moblin was blue, the tier above red enemies, so it took a few more hits than usual. I entered the nearby shrine. The first part in here was a simple matter of driving over the lava with big wheels, but the second part confused me. I could not figure out how I was supposed to do it, so I resorted to recall cheese. Big strats. This final part was easier, with some big slappy propellers spinning wildly to cross the water. I cleared a couple of Lizzlefoss camps, I chatted to this lady dressed as a mushroom who told me where to find treasure, and I climbed this big old route.
What is this? Oh, is this a lift? It's a launchy thing.
It was a launchy shrine too, as I had to launch a ball and myself all over the place.
Bouncy.
I headed towards this Skyview tower and got into a rumble with this Battle Talus. And it may have killed me twice in a row, but we won't dwell on that. Clearly I'm an excellent gamer, so it must have been my controller's fault. And I killed it eventually. I headed into this rather constipated cave, and after I cleared the obstruction, I fought some horriblins. Behind this boulder was a sneaky room with a bunch of mineral nodes and the bubble frog. I headed up to the tower, but this birdman complained that the door was jammed, so I headed back down to the cave and used Ascend, and it turns out some silly willy jammed big sticks on either side of the doors. So I cleared those, allowing old mate to enter and repair the tower's console. And then, you know the drill. This area to the east of the castle was revealed on the map, and I used the height to paraglide over to the northern Occluder Sky Archipelago. There was a shrine with a laser beam pointing to a missing green rock, so I executed some elite rotational skills coupled with some elite recall magic to get over to the rock. When I returned it, the green turd grew up into a big boy shrine, and I couldn't have been more proud. Inside it was a freebie, I guess since I'd done all the hard work returning the rock to its correct spot. This launchy thing sent me over to an island featuring many minerals and a chest with the sage's will in it.
Holding it in your hand, you can feel the remnants of a strong bond. What the heck? It's a key item. What's that for?
I saw these cheeky islands down here, so I went to investigate, and I was confused as to their purpose until I finally noticed this dangling chest. I built and placed a platform for the chest to land on and shot it down.
Old map. Oh, it's showing me something in the depths. Okay.
2 fancy new sky items in 2 minutes. Very nice. I found a big hearty radish. Delicious. And I briefly skydived after this Korok before fast traveling back to this shrine I just unlocked and spying another dangly chest. It was under that thinger I'd been rotating earlier. I rotated it again such that the chest dangled above an island and headed over to collect another old map. It looks like there's going to be plenty of treasure to find in the depths. And then it was time to come back down to Earth.
The hell? A mid-air star fragment. What is going on? I'll take it.
I landed next to this shrine overlooking Kakariko Village, in which I was introduced to a new device that stands upright when activated. I made use of it to catapult myself through the puzzles and snag myself the Light of Blessing. I then explored Kakariko Village, finding this Korok and accepting some side quests from the locals. I also spent 4 more Lights of Blessing to claim another stamina boost at this statue. The prices in this shop were rather outrageous, and I discovered the price hike was due to illness in the family. Nana was down for the count after suffering gloom poisoning. So I went for a wander to find this trader from whom I bought a bunch of milk and rice, which I used with a Sunday lion to make sunny veggie porridge. And this healed Nana of her gloomtastic affliction. This got the family back on its feet, heartwarming stuff. And the armor prices returned to normal, even more heartwarming stuff. So I sold a bunch of gems and bought the entire stealth set for 1800 rupees. I had a chat with Paya, the leader of Kakariko Village, and this bloke.
Toro, what a unit.
A bunch of ring ruins had landed on and around the village during the upheaval, and they featured strange stone slabs with ancient text on them. Strangely, Paya claimed Princess Zelda had visited and expressly told them not to investigate this floating part of the ruins, so that particular area was out of bounds.
Whoa, what the heck? He's going into that? What?
I chose to ignore the blue noodle descending into the depths, and after checking out this slab, which apparently told of various elemental powers such as wind and fire, I got into a fight with some blue monsters before carrying this Korok all the way to his buddy, earning seeds 42 and 43. I spent day 27 checking out the rest of the slabs. Slabs 2 and 3 told of some ancient sages who had protected the world from a demon, and they'd left some artifacts somewhere to help future generations. The 4th ruins had a little infestation, so I cleared that out, and then learned the stone slab here told of how talented individuals became elemental sages by taking up secret stones. So I'd learned a bunch about these sages, and I was getting the hint that perhaps it was my job to find these secret stones in order to fight the dehydrated mummy who caused the upheaval. I also did a side quest to wake up this idiot using the delicious aroma of a truffle so that he could return to his responsibilities instead of snoozing indefinitely using a precious ancient artifact as a bed. And then I hit the mother lode.
Oh, here they are. Absolutely bonkers.
I'd been sent to track down these chickens and steal their eggs, so I delivered 10 eggs to this granny, and with that side quest complete, I decided it was finally time to get on with the main story quest. I fast traveled back west and headed off, and I immediately got distracted by these ruins. I visited this well with a like and lots of juicy mineral nodes. I destroyed countless boxes because I'm always on the hunt for arrows, and I got into a tussle with the bokoblin conga lion.
Oh, it's one of these things.
I ran away, of course.
What on earth? What is this?
This is probably the most random thing in this game. A mini game where you spook a horse, causing a bunch of plushies to scatter to the 4 winds, and then you collect them all. I used Ultra Hand to stick a bunch together and return them to the cart in a clump. It was wonderful stuff. I continued north, and on the way I took on a sleepy Hinox, whose health melted beneath the wax of my 22 damage boomerang with a blue boss Boko's horn fused to it. I helped President Hudson stand tall once more, and I headed into this shrine, the Song of Ice and Fire Shrine. Fire melts ice. There's some science for you. So this shrine had me playing around with that interaction. I had to use ice to slide this big slab down the spikes, and use the slab to press this giant button under the flamethrowers. Shrine number 18, complete. I arrived at my destination, the Forgotten Temple, where I was planning to meet up with Impa in hopes we might discover more about the mysterious geoglyphs. I fought and collected my way through, and I made use of this neat trick, fusing a rocket to a shield for some quick vertical traversal. I caught up with Impa, but she hadn't found what she was after, so as usual, it was up to me. But first, shrine time. This one had me using these pieces to complete a rectangular prism, and then in the next room, a cube, rotating and lining up and slotting them all together.
What on earth is this? It's a flower.
And in the final room, a big map of Hyrule with all the geoglyphs represented. Impa tasked me with finding them all and collecting all the dragon's tears, and so I took a photo on my iPad for reference. I headed west towards the Hebra region, popping into a circle of leaves on the way.
Oh. Good enough? Yeah, good enough, clearly. Is he on a funny angle still? He is. I don't know about that, man.
I picked up and flung some rock boys before completing this rock Korok puzzle, and then headed into this shrine. A very difficult tutorial shrine teaching me how to headshot. I fast traveled back to Lookout Landing to claim another stamina vessel, and then returned to visit this stable, where I followed the flowers to find Korok number 46, and I dropped into this well, which featured bubbly mud. I attached a harness to Shadowfax and plonked my cargo in this cart, reuniting yet another pair of Korok buddies before heading across the Tabantha Great Bridge, which was looking a little worse for wear. I helped Addison with another of his signs, and then had a crack at this minigame, where Boulder Buddy over there lobbed these rocks, and it was my job to get them to land in the swinging tray. My first attempt was a shocker, but I soon developed a strategy using recall, which of course reverses the movement of the boulders. But as soon as you cancel the recall, the boulder drops where it is. With this mechanic, I managed a score of 20 and earned 100 rupees for my efforts. I found one of these wispy, leafy, zoomy, running around in circle Koroks, and I found a Hornist stuck in a hole. I built a most excellent contraption to get him and his cart out, and I offered him sage advice.
Try avoid falling into holes, is what I would suggest.
I used recall on a fallen boulder to get some height, and then glided down to this Korok in need, and proceeded to launch a hugely successful flight.
Oh crap. Oh crap. You go this way, you go this way. Oh, I fell off. No.
I had to walk the little fella the rest of the way. Check out this President Hudson sign. This one is tall, it's good. And as I drew nearer to the heart of the Hebra region, it got a little frosty. Into another shrine I went, which had me doing silly willies with rockets.
Oh crap. We did it.
And after taking out another Bokoblin family, I entered this fairly large cave, where I fought Horriblins, Laklaks, and Spikes. And I found an intriguing piece of armor.
Frostbite shirt. Cold weather attack.
I surfed down to this stable where I cooked a bunch of peppers to stock up on cold-resistant food, and I learned what cold weather attack meant. It turned out this stable had been repurposed as a newspaper headquarters, and the boss Tracy had been receiving strange reports of Princess Zelda sightings from all around Hyrule, so she tasked Birdman Pen and I with investigating. The bridge here was broken, but fortunately throwing a single pine cone into the fire causes it to absolutely rage, producing an updraft which I caught with my paraglider. That must be one oily pine cone. And so I arrived at Rito Village. These ducklings sang me a beautiful song about a flying ship. I sold some stuff and bought some cold resistant clothes, and I headed into this village's shrine.
What is going on in this shrine, dude? This shrine is just windy.
I rode the wind and took out some constructs using my big stick with an icicle fuse to the end of it. And right next to the shrine entrance, a rock Korok.
What's going on over here?
That's not fair at all! You know I can handle it! Checking out that huge cloud wouldn't be hard. I could even do it alone.
This headstrong duckling Tulin was keen to investigate the raging storm that had appeared out of nowhere at the time of the upheaval, and Dad here wasn't happy with his son's arrogance. He flew off defiantly regardless. I headed off to follow the young Rito, and on the way I found a dedicated Addison braving the freezing temperatures in service of President Hudson. I headed up into the mountains, and after clearing some spiky weeds I entered this Skyview Tower, and unveiled this area on the map. While up there I took the opportunity to land on the West Hebra Sky Archipelago, where I demolished this flux construct with some big bonks from my spiky hammer, and it dropped an old map. I bought some gumballs and headed into a mile-high shrine. This shrine was basically an opportunity to fuse stuff to your shields. I used a fire-breathing shield, a big fat slab shield, and a rocket shield to progress through and earn my light of blessing. I found some ice fruit. These are handy to use as frost arrows. I found another old map, and I returned to ground. I made my way through this meandering cave system, climbing ever upward past obstacle and foe. And who should await me when I emerged?
Old mates up here.
This sign had double the President Hudson. Very good. I continued my ascent, braving the snow, the ugly dinguses, the sheer cliff faces, and soon I had caught up with Tulin. The silly goose had gotten his bow stolen by an Eracluda.
When Tulin's aura is charged, he can create a stream of wind that blows straight forward.
This ability helps with traversal, therefore I love it. We rescued Tulin's bow, and this taught the little fella the value of working as a team, so together we continued into the eye of the storm. We had more climbing to do, but I got distracted murdering a bunch of constructs and monsters, continuing to build up my repertoire of weaponry as I looted their bodies. But before long, we were gliding and climbing our way up these floating ruins towards the storm. A strange voice called out to us.
Come to me.
There's a lot of boats. What the heck? Oh. There's a big boat.
This shrine had a clear purpose: learn about them floaty boats. They launch you upward, providing a great opportunity to use bullet time to thread the needle and hit the pylon. I headed to Lookout Landing to grab another stamina vessel, upping my total stamina to 2 wheels, and I returned to fight the constructs that blocked my way, to glide, to ascend, to clear icicles, and break the ice. And on this crazy climb continued. Pretty much all of day 35 was dedicated to getting higher and higher. There was even a hot air balloon involved. Soon we arrived at another shrine, and I was grateful because if I'd fallen after the progress I'd just made and not been able to fast travel back up, I would have cried. And then it was time to bounce on some boats. We circled the raging storm, climbing higher and higher, until finally we were over the top of the impenetrable winds, and we dropped into the calm inside.
Wind Temple. The legendary Stormwind Arc.
As we arrived on the giant ship, we caught a glimpse of what looked like Princess Zelda before she once again mysteriously disappeared. The source of the blizzard terrorizing the Hebra region was beneath these locks, but old mate voice in our heads informed us 5 locks still needed to be disengaged before we could investigate further. These were conveniently pinpointed on my map, and so began our adventure in the Wind Temple. I used a most excellent icicle handle to turn the lever, and aimed Tulin's gust at this fan thingo, and with the gust it began to spin, disengaging lock number 1. I floated up and opened these rather large doors, then went Mission Impossible mode to navigate these laser beams, and at the bottom I totally missed my first gust. But we got it the second time, don't worry. I saw on the map there was a lock on a lower floor, but I couldn't find a way down, so I checked the side of the ship, and floated my way to this entrance here where I took out a construct and disengaged lock number 3. Oh! While being shot at by a cannon, I found another side entrance, and inside I used a long ice method to finesse this chest through the hole.
The ice pick method. Flawless.
And I used the ice pick method to get them gears grinding too, opening this door and allowing Gusty Tulin to disengage lock number 4. With 1 lock to go, I was kind of stumped, as I couldn't seem to find the entrance until...
Oh. The stairs are literally right here.
Up the stairs and this ladder, there were some more laser beam shenanigans to scoot through to get this chest, and I connected some janky slabs to this spinny thing so that Tulin could do the big flap, granting access to the final lock. And finally, it was time.
Oh dear. Goodness gracious me. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. That's a big frosty boy. Looks like something out of Monster Hunter. Colgera.
Colgera shot icy spikes from its back at me, but this made it vulnerable to my arrows.
We made a hole in it. What the heck?
What? Where'd it go?
It's going through changing dimensions.
Link, below you!
I'd soon shot 3 holes in it, and it was time for Phase 2.
What is this big Pokemon?
Phase 2 featured a great many tornadoes.
Ah, what the heck?
Other than that, it was the same, and soon enough I had poked holes in the beast once again.
Now you got holes all through you. That's a pretty cool fight.
And with Colgera's demise, the storm stilled and the skies cleared, and the Hebra region was freed from the relentless, awful weather.
We got ourselves a cheeky heart. Dragon's tear or sage's tear or a tear of the kingdom?
It's the secret stone of wind, once used by this ancient sage in the fight against the Demon King, where they failed to defeat him, but Raru managed to imprison him with his right arm. And now, all these years later, the secret stone had passed down to Chulin.
I am the Sage of Wind! Look! Check out what I can do now!
We performed a magical secret handshake, which means the power of the Sage of Wind will now follow me wherever I go, helping me with his gusts and his bow. We then returned to a Rito village free of snow, everything as it should be. Now that this giant rock was no longer icy, I immediately climbed it and claimed the Korok seat at the top, and I glided over here and did perhaps the most random Korok puzzle ever. The Fix the Roof Korok puzzle. A bunch of side quests had popped up with the village's rejuvenation, so I grabbed those, and one of them required me to be atop the giant rock early in the morning in order to see a shadow and a white bird or something rather. So I climbed all the way back up again, set up a campfire, and waited until dawn.
Oh, there's the white bird. The white bird is made of snow.
I placed a pin on it to visit later, as apparently there's a special cave over there. I glided down here and popped a Korok balloon, and as I moved further away from the village, my finger tingled, and I now had access to Tulin's sage power at any time. I felt it was time to free-range explore like a gremlin again, so I did. I got in a couple of scraps, I had a chat with this handsome bloke who was painting the glorious scene, I chased this bear for a bit, and I headed to the white bird.
Here's the bird. Bird's eye as a Korok.
The white bird guided me to a cave with a shrine in which the power of leverage was on full display. Check out this successful attempt at the catapult shot. I found this cherry blossom oasis in the middle of the snow, so I offered up a golden apple to the shrine.
Hey! Oh, what the heck? He's revealed a whole bunch of spots everywhere. What does that mean?
I glided over to Dragon Bone Mire, where I found a rock Korok along with 3 blue fat boys, and as I wandered over this way, I realized those beams the spectral moose had created were indicating cave entrances. And in one such cave, I ventured to retrieve the green crystal for this shrine. I used a rocket to get it out.
No.
After that mishap, I couldn't for the life of me get the flamin' crystal out of the hole again. I resorted to making the most obscene pile of nonsense, and I still couldn't get it out. Until I had another try with the rocket, and I finally managed to make it work again. I was even smart enough not to drop it back into the hole once again, so that was a huge win. And inside the shrine, it was a freebie. Deeper into the cave, I of course collected a bubble gem, and I found my first diamond. Over in this little copse, I sniffed out the intersection of these mysterious arrows and found a Korok atop this tree. I offered some spicy peppers to lure out this Korok, and after following the edge of the map for a while, I rode this boulder back in time, up high.
Oh my lord, what are you? You see that? Look at that.
I decided to steer clear of the 3-headed dragon for now, and instead gusted towards this shrine. Inside, I moved around some cubes, I moved around some slabs, and I constructed a glorious cube plus slab art piece to catch this chest containing the small key.
Those doors are so cool. I like them.
I fast traveled back up north, where I spotted another 3-headed dragon and hit up the flight range, hosted by a big bird with the most glorious facial hair you've ever seen. The goal here was to go through as many rings as possible in the allotted time, using the updraft to maneuver around. I gave it a few cracks and managed to get a high score of 33, earning 100 rupees. I'd spied a shrine partway up the mountain, so I got my climb on, and it was a laser beam shrine, so I crouched under beams, I jumped over beams, and my favorite was the lattice of beams that I ascended to avoid. Altogether, it was a wonderful shrine and I was beaming. On day 41, I one-hit this sneaky ice lizard with a fire arrow. I freed this idiot from his icy prison, only to instantly end his meaningless existence, and I made a bad decision.
He's shooting laser beams at me. Frosty beams. Oh my lord.
I managed to do about 3 damage to it before I got frozen into the afterlife. I blasted my way into this cave and rescued this intrepid adventurer before ripping this gnarly shield surf down this tunnel. When I spotted this enormous ice cube, I became suspicious, and I found it of course hid a cave entrance, and this cave was unique. It had this windy area with several blocked tunnels up high, which I unblocked, and some of them had bats or treasure, but 3 of them had water. Once I'd unblocked all 3, this handsome bird statue thingo moved out of the way, revealing some tasty loot.
Ooh, Van Meadow Divine Helm.
I then fast traveled up to the Winds Temple and glided all the way to the South Hebra Sky Archipelago, where I found a Sage's Will, this Korok puzzle where the floor is lava and the target is the safe zone, and as I was gliding back down to Hyrule, I spotted a foe. I landed on his back, and let's just say it was a bad idea. I made my way down to this geoglyph on the mountainside, where I claimed a cheeky acorn Korok, and I tracked down the dragon's tear and watched my second vision into the past. This one revealed that the tear Zelda picked up right at the beginning of the story is actually a secret stone of time, which, as she was falling, she'd somehow used to time travel. But she didn't know how to use it again, so she was now stuck in the wrong time. King Raru suggested his sister Minoru might be able to help. I headed back to Lookout Landing to check in, and because I had progressed Pura's quest, I was now able to continue Josh's questline into the depths. She reckoned the big statues down there were pointing at something, so she wanted me to follow the big fingers. I repaired the stable, and then spotted an old friend.
Alright, big fella. Dance. Salaka.
Hestu takes the Korok poops I've been collecting, and in return grants Link more space for weaponry and shields.
Beautiful.
Apparently that dance somehow does the trick. I used my 61 Korok seeds to purchase several melee and bow weapon slots. Lookout Landing had also endured the wrath of a fallen Sky Island in my absence, and Wordsworth was keen to learn the significance of the words written on it. But he needed to return to his office in Kakariko to translate it. I claimed another stamina vessel, and then headed into the ancient royal passage that had randomly opened up because this lady was brooming too aggressively. Inside I found this creepy statue, at which you can swap hearts for stamina vessels and vice versa, and the beginning of this enormous underground passage. I nearly spent 2 whole days down here, and I can pretty much sum up the experience by saying I destroyed a heck of a lot of rocks. Seriously, there were so many rocks, even some blue rocks. I fought a great many monsters, including a frosty Laklak and some black Horoblins, which were pretty tanky. I destroyed a bunch of rocks, I collected the entire soldier's armor set, I destroyed some luminous rocks, I killed some zappy Laklaks, I of course found a bubble gem, and I rounded out the adventure destroying a genuinely huge pile of rocks. under which I found a friend.
Oh my gosh, this may be a regrettable decision.
Stalnoxes are like Hinoxes, except skinnier. The fight was similar to the Hinox fight, with the eye of course being vulnerable, but when the eyeball started rolling around on the ground, things got a little out of hand. I tried throwing it in the water, but it didn't sink, so that was disappointing. But ultimately, I was victorious.
Stalnox on 29.
29 bonus damage is huge for a fusible monster part. At least at this point in the game it was for me. So I counted that a good reward for my extremely long sojourn into the caves beneath the castle. I descended to the depths to work on Josh's quests, and began following the raised arms of these statues. I found this apparition holding a sword, so I decided to attach the Stalnox horn to it, resulting in a 41 damage weapon. The statues led me to a light route, and then...
Oh my gosh. Who is that good looking rooster?
The big Frox is a Cyclops like the Hinox and Stalnox, but he can only be damaged by hitting the pimples on his back, just like a Talus. As you can see, it took me a second to work that out. Also, he makes a mean vacuum cleaner.
No, Zuck. No, Zuck. No, Zuck. Ah! No belly flop.
After that rocky start, I pricked the big buff in the eyeball and went to town on his pimples with my new sword. A bullet time eyeball shot and some more pimple whacking and the Frox was dead. He dropped relatively unimpressive monster fuse parts, but a large crystallized charge was a nice find. The statues led me on quite the chase. On the way, I dropped in at this weird hut with a tattered notebook with mention of one Master Koga. I was also led through the Grove of Time, which featured a great many angry trees. And this particular tree dropped a gnarled stick with the solid 19 damage pre-fuse. And before long, I arrived at the Great Abandoned Central Mine. There were some gooses here trying to uncover whatever secrets this ancient structure held, but they lacked a fancy arm, so they were having no luck. I of course don't have that problem, so I was granted my final special power, Auto Build. This is a blueprint system for Ultra Hand creations, very handy. It turned out those researchers that were poking around were actually Yiga clan members, and they were not pleased that I'd claimed the power they were after, and so I got into an epic battle with Master Koga.
What the heck?
He had an impressive vehicle, but it was easy to knock him off with an arrow and whack him repeatedly, so it wasn't a particularly difficult fight. He promised vengeance and flew off into the distance. Defeating the big boy earned me 100 crystallized charges and a schematic to use with my new auto build ability. I used it immediately to make this flying machine and soared off to activate the nearby light route. And one of the X's from an old map was nearby, so I headed down to this abandoned mine to claim the treasure. Some glowy mining pants. Stylish. I'd collected a fair few Poes in my time down here, so I headed back to Lookout Landing to talk to this termite mound. It takes the Poes in exchange for goodies. I bought a dark tunic for 150 Poes. I told Joshua of my success following the statues in the depths, and she gave me another schematic, this one for a hot air balloon. I used it to reconstruct this mess out here, and Robbie took it as his ride back to his lab in Hudson Village, and he said if I meet him there, he'll install some upgrades on my Puropad. I paid Kakariko a visit and chatted to Wordsworth, who had translated that island that fell on Lookout Landing.
One's held, Your Honor, alas. Hello?
He found these ramblings to be important, so he sent me off to find 12 similar floating islands all around Hyrule, as he wanted me to take a photo of their writings. Since I was here, I sold a bunch of gems and bought the entire Radiant set, and I headed into the depths to test it out.
Beautiful.
I headed to another old map's X and found myself the miner's top, and if the Radiant Skelly is beautiful, the miner's outfit is majestic, even without the helm. I mined Zonite for a bit before visiting this fella, who took 200 crystallized charges to make 2 energy wells, increasing my Zonite device battery capacity. And since I was up here, I figured I might as well glide to this strange cluster of sky islands.
What is this? Oh.
I ascended all the way to the top and found a rock Korok in a big tree, and I glided my way down to the bottom. And on my way, I collected another Korok, a flowery one this time. I activated this console down here, and everything got windy. I displayed my geometrical prowess, completing this triangle to earn another Korok seed. And I stubbornly continued scouring the area, and of course it paid off. Yet another Korok.
4 Koroks on this sky area. How about that?
Satisfied I'd stuck my nose in every nook and cranny, I rode the wind up to the top, and the laser beam hole was now open, so down I went.
Done. Oh, and I died.
I got some intriguing devices from this gacha machine. Beam emitter, frost emitter, and a homing cart, and...
I'm naked. It's a naked shrine.
I was stripped of all my equipment and provided with limited resources with which to defeat the constructs, and it was low gravity for some reason. I moon bounced my way to victory. Back outside, I jumped in lava before gliding off to take a photo of some ancient writings for Wordsworth at this floating island. RIP to any poor fools enjoying a picnic down below. I had other islands to visit before I followed it to ground, so over I glided. I found another old map before crafting a wonderful plane, and I had a control stick at my disposal, the first I'd ever found, and some disposable batteries too. But clearly Luckily, I was still a noob at this, because the only means of propulsion I added were 2 rockets, which deplete in about 3 seconds.
Oh crap.
Luckily, I was able to land on this island, where I used one of these floaty things and some rockets to get the height I needed to glide over to the big island. I found a Korok in this big old hollow stump, and I headed down to the interior of the island, featuring some big bramble stem thingos that I burned up, and a green shrine turd to return to some other island nearby. I crafted a flying device, and I'd learned my lesson, so this time I used fans, and off I went.
Yeah, this works really well. Sick. Oh crap. Fly down, fly down. Crash landing time.
It was a great feeling to be able to travel long distances through the air and actually steer using the control stick. I placed the shrine and claimed my freebie, and there was a rather nice shield in there. And I scoured the area, but the only other thing I found was a floor is lava Korok. I glided towards where that island from earlier had fallen. I found a balloon poppy Korok.
Yeah.
And took a photo of the ancient writings. On day 49, I decided it was time to strike out towards the next story destination, and so north I went towards the Elden region, and of course I investigated all there was to see along the way. This one featured some fairly simple recall puzzles, including some deft ball handling to get these doors open. I found these 2 idiots staring at a chest above the bog, so I made a long plank to scoop it out of there, and absolutely bamboozled Dumb and Dumber by placing the chest right next to them. I entered the cave across the other side of the bog and experienced the origin moment that turned me into Batman. Just near the cave was a truly magnificent bog, with a rock Korok stranded in the middle, and over here a strange bulbous sight. Inside hid a frightened great fairy who accused me of being a monster.
Monster? Excuse me?
I happened upon another shrine just down the hill, and this one featured another recall puzzle with a big cube that shot me up into the air. Down at this stable, I found part of a musical troupe who claimed a blonde woman had deceived the fairy, and they wanted to go play music to her, but their cart was broken. Before helping with that, I was distracted by a strange sight.
Oh, it's the monster guy. What the heck? Kilton. These are some good looking brothers, man. Strong genetics.
These guys love bubble gems, so I gave them one and earned a bokoblin hat in return. And after 50 days, I now finally knew what the gems were for. They went on their way, promising to give me more monster gear if I ever caught up to them with more bubble gems. I used ice arrows to ice cube hop my way to this floating chest and was rewarded with glorious amber, before chatting to all the people around the stable and finally repairing the musician's cart and giving them a ride.
Does she really need that bloke conducting for her? Alright, out you come. Come on, Great Fairy.
The music did the trick, and the enormous fairy burst forth from hiding. My newspaper colleague Birdman appeared, and we learned that it was someone that looked like Princess Zelda who had scared the Great Fairy into hiding. So he flew off to write up an article of another mysterious Zelda sighting. Elite journalism, no doubt. The Great Fairies can upgrade clothing items, so I had an upgrade rampage, improving every piece of gear I could afford. I then attempted to create a weapon using a laser emitter atop a construct head which aims at enemies. It wasn't particularly effective. Honestly, mate, there are 14 monsters surrounding you. Why are you aiming off into the abyss?
Get him. Get him. It doesn't do very much damage, but it's persistent, that's for sure.
I found a time trial Korok, and then decided to head into this chasm because I wanted to hear this epic soundtrack again. While down there, I went to an old map's X and picked up the Tunic of the Sky. I activated another light route and just ran around a bit collecting stuff before fast traveling to Lookout Landing to buy myself another stamina vessel. I cleaned up this Hinox before he could get to his feet. I made use of some ice arrows to take out a camp of bokoblins. I helped President Hudson stand tall yet again, and soon I was at the foot of the Elden Canyon Skyview Tower. This one was locked for some reason, but its top had popped off, so I recalled a fallen boulder to gain height and skydived into it. And after being shot into the air to gather topographical information, I once again used my altitude to glide over to the nearby Sky Archipelago.
What the heck? Yeah, let's go.
After killing that joyriding construct, I had a joyride of my own. I found a dangly chest with an old map in it, a sage's will, and after another joyride, I wandered into this shrine. In this one, I had a hydrant spurting infinite water and lava, and I went nuts creating slabs of volcanic rock. As you can see, you can connect them together, so I made a rather glorious stone bridge to cross this final lava pool. I scoured the rest of the area collecting goodies, and I shot over to this island where I took a photo of some more ancient text. When I headed back to ground, I beelined for this geoglyph depicting a PlayStation Portable. I found a rock Korok and one of the joysticks, and then I slurped up the dragon's tear, another vision into the past. Zelda was introduced to Minoru, and they discussed potential ways Zelda might return to her proper time, but it wasn't looking good. The only thing Minoru could think of was an illegal practice called draconification, where a sage eats their secret stone.
To swallow a secret stone is to become an immortal dragon, one blessed with eternal life. To become an immortal dragon is to lose oneself.
So Zelda could turn herself into an immortal dragon and literally wait thousands of years to catch up to her original time, but she would lose herself in the process. So it wasn't an ideal option, and they instead vowed to investigate other time travel options.
What the heck?
I collected this rock Korok seed and then dived into the toasty spring waters below. I cleared this cave and continued up towards Death Mountain, collecting Koroks and taking out camps of monsters as I went. I was making a car to transport this dingus to his mate, but I decided I couldn't be bothered, so I carried him the old-fashioned way before heading into this shrine. It was another lava one, featuring some recoil action to retrieve this ball, and a volcanic rock fan-powered raft. I then paid a visit to the Bedrock Bistro, where I was disturbed to find all the adult Gorons were absolutely hammered out of their minds on marbled rock roast, a mysterious new cuisine. Clearly this was a substance abuse crisis in the Goron community, but for some reason I immediately contributed to the problem by doing a quest to collect more of the nefarious marbled rock roast. I brewed up some fireproof elixirs first, because caves in this region are toasty hot. I collected a bunch of the narcotic roast and chucked it in the minecart, and I zoomed it on out of there. It felt like a drug heist, not gonna lie. The Goron cartel must have been fuming. After successfully making the drug epidemic worse, I continued on up. I did some of these ones. I reunited yet another pair of hapless Koroks using the connect a whole bunch of crap together until it's tall enough to reach from the top technique. I cleaned up a bunch of monsters that were causing a stink with their rowdy behavior, and I made my way into another cave. Once again, it was lava filled, and I enjoyed some leisurely floating along the lava river. I wandered over to this Unobo Mining Co. gem store, but the ruby stall was unattended. Apparently because the bloke who worked there was absolutely off his noodle on marbled rock roast. I found this dive Korok in the waters of this lovely river. I helped straighten President Hudson's spine, and I pulled up to Goron City in style.
Look at this. Beautiful.
I collected that balloon Korok, and I definitely hit it first try. You can't prove otherwise. There's no way I wasted like 15 arrows trying to hit it. Don't be silly. In the town center, this fella was absolutely gone. Brain turned to mush. And the old fella and these kitties were not happy about it. And then Unobo, head of the mining company, showed up.
There's nothing to worry about, in my opinion.
He would say that though, because he's the bloke selling the stuff. Despicable crime lord behavior. I sold a bunch and bought a flame-resistant chest piece. I found another belly flop Korok, and I headed into the nearby shrine. For this puzzle, I'm quite confident you're supposed to use the wheels to drag the bridge across. I did not do it the intended way. I did make a glorious tractor to push all them balls onto the big button though, so that was a win for humanity. I found another balloon Korok. I shot this one first try too. You can't prove otherwise. And I claimed another stamina vessel before doing a flyby of Goron Mount Rushmore. It was beautiful to behold up close, no doubt. And then it was time to pay a visit to Unobo Mining Co.'s headquarters so that I could give this rude Unobo fella a piece of my mind. On the way, I got into a fight with this lunatic. I saved yet another Korok marriage from divorce. I helped President Hudson do his thing, straight back, chin up and all that, and I slid down a hill. I cleared out this cave, killing a bunch of Horoblins and a like, but when I tried to destroy this weird gloom rock, I found it resistant to my efforts, so I was unable to find the bubble frog. And of course every cave has a bubble frog, so I was slightly confused. I got into a rumble with a Bokoblin conga line, I fused a few juicy weapons to some high plus damage monster parts, and I arrived at Unobo HQ. Imposter Zelda was having a chat with Unobo, and these two gremlins told me I must take off his weird WWE mask, as it held sway over his mind. I took on the big fella, and my newly crafted weapons absolutely chunked his health bar down, and as he took damage, his mask began to crack.
Be free, my child.
The creepy Zelda wandered off, and we were trapped by a cave-in. Fortunately, I now had the assistance of a clear-minded Unobo, and he makes for an excellent bowling ball.
Just playing bowling with the bloke. I love it. I got my bowling ball now, so I can go into the caves.
Unobo's roll can take out the gloomy red rocks, so I figured I'd be able to access everything in the area now. In this cave, I traversed some lava and found the amber headdress. I barged my way into this one and found a shrine buried in rocks, and inside the shrine, another naked challenge. After dying on my first attempt, I whipped out a nifty use of recall, sending these time bombs right back in their throwers' faces. Then it was time to climb the mountain in search of Princess Zelda.
Every time I'm in a vehicle, this guy just wants to shoot people. It's glorious. I don't know. Welcome back. Oh, we didn't make it.
I went into that cave from earlier and used my newfound ability to access this room. I went for a joyride about halfway up the mountain, and I saved this trapped marble roast addict, and his minecart got some sick air in the process. I rigged up a fan-powered minecart and continued my ascent, shooting my good friend Unobo at monsters as we went. We got stopped at a blockade, but I didn't want to pay the toll, so things got violent, and before long we arrived at the summit.
There she is! Princess! Princess Zelda! We need to talk to you! It's dangerous.
Rising from the Death Mountain crater, Morasia.
Conveniently, there was a well-designed flying machine right next to me, so off we went. This volcanic monster had 3 marble rock heads, which I took out with the help of Unobo.
Ah! Oh, there we go. I defeated the boss. Done. Easy.
Everything collapsed, revealing a giant hole down into the depth, so there was only one thing to do. It was of course quite the long fall, as we were at the top of a mountain, but soon I found myself plummeting towards an enormous lake of lava. I glided to a nearby light route, and we heard a strange voice calling out to us, beckoning us to come towards this structure in the distance.
Do some bowling with these idiots? Like a marble roast sword. +2 damage. That's a bit sad.
I auto-built this marvelous vehicle and got on the move, and soon the temple was in sight. I collected pose and got into fights as I went, and I enjoyed making use of Yunobo's bowling ball as a handy combat tool. I zoomed past these roof dangly nerds and blasted my way through some red rocks, and suddenly I had arrived. I don't know why, but I hadn't expected any of the dungeons to be in the depths, so this felt pretty cool to me. I had a look at the map and discovered the fire temple has 5 levels, and I got to exploring. We spotted Zelda being consumed by a bunch of rocks on the other side of this gate, and we were offered sage advice from the strange voice.
The gate you must pass through is firmly locked with 5 padlocks.
And so off we went to unlock all 5 padlocks. The fire temple had some constructs to fight, plenty of lava and hydrants to make slabs of volcanic rock, and of course mine carts and switches to move the tracks around. I used a hydrant to make a bridge across here where I shot my bowling ball, granting access to this area featuring a big old gong, which when struck with a high-speed Yunobo resulted in padlock number 1 opening its ridiculous mouth. I climbed up this wall to floor 2, where I destroyed some constructs before getting bamboozled by a great many minecart tracks. There were more switches that completely moved tracks around, spinning them and angling them up and down. It was fun zooming around the place on my fan-powered cart, and soon enough I made it to this area where I recalled my way across this lava pool and shot Yunobo at this gong, unlocking a second padlock. I continued exploring the temple, and it's fair to say it was a tad chaotic, but I soon zoomed my way up to this open area on floor 3. From here there were plenty of directions I could go, but for some reason I did this.
Okay, that was not the play.
I shot at this switch for ages, and when I finally hit it, the tracks lowered, allowing me to head up to this next area, where I did some of these ones to get up to the next area. I found a ruby here, so that was nice, but other than that, it seemed to be a bit of a dead end. So I resorted to scaling the outside of the buildings. I have no idea what the intended path was, but if it works, why not? Gong number 3 and padlock number 3 unlocked. After fumbling around for a while, I zoomed on up here, where I built this outrageous ramp to reach gong number 4, and I made it even longer to try and reach across this gap to destroy the marbled rock. With the way clear, I headed across and dropped down to the final gong, and finally the gate was unlocked. The boss fight room had curved walls, which meant my bowling ball was able to defy gravity to destroy the rocks on the roof.
That's Sauron's eye. Marbled Goma. Goma. Rings a bell from another game.
I shot out the crabby beast's legs, and then climbed up and slapped Sauron's eye silly, and it was time for phase 2.
Oh, he's gone roof mode. That's fine. I'm just shooting in a random direction. I got him straight away, what the hell?
And so I slapped the eye some more, and Marbled Goma was defeated. I claimed my heart container, and Yunobo claimed his secret stone, and it was pretty much a repeat of what happened after the first dungeon. The old sage had a rather glorious helmet, Yunobo became the new sage of fire, we bro-fisted, and my fancy arm got itself another ring for another sage's power, and the Elden region was healed from Marbled Goma's taint, and the Marbled Rock Roast drug epidemic was ended. I picked up a few side quests, including one to craft a boulder breaker. I happened to have the materials, so I made one immediately.
38 without fusing anything.
And I wandered off to explore the Elden region some more. I found a rock circle Korok, and I helped reunite 2 more Koroks using a rather chaotic mode of transport.
What? What? How did that go so poorly?
I helped President Hudson stand erect and continued trying to reunite the Koroks. I got there eventually. Then I was into this shrine featuring a couple of straightforward recall puzzles, getting them gears turning forward and backwards in order to overcome the obstacles. I floated down to the neighboring region and helped Hudson stand tall once again, and this one actually required quite an elaborate construction. I made my way over to these ruins where a research team was investigating. They'd found some slabs with cryptic instructions written on them relating to the sage's powers, and so I searched around, and following the instructions, I was able to use the sage's power of wind to blow a gust at the owl protected by dragons, earning 3 sapphires, and the sage's power of fire in the corridor between 2 dragons, earning 3 rubies. I completed this geometrical Korok puzzle, and I cleared this floating block out of the way of the Skyview Tower so that I could shoot upwards, unveiling the map for this region. And I of course used the height to glide over to some nearby sky islands. As always, I claimed some goodies from the gumball machine because different machines offer different devices, and I wanted to get my hands on every device possible, and this big fella had stolen a shrine crystal. So I took him out using the usual methods, and then had the task of somehow flying the green turd back up to the island above. I used a combination of rockets and a fan to get this floaty block way above where I needed to be.
Drop it here. Oh my gosh. I was way further over than I thought. We're good though.
I claimed my shrine reward, and this Korok, which had a unique puzzle I'd never seen before. I had to climb onto the stump thingo. Then it was over to this spirally spinny nonsense, and I had a feeling as to what I was in for over here. And sure enough, it was another skydiving course. I used my glide shirt, which significantly increases skydiving maneuverability, reducing the amount of paraglider pauses needed to hit the rings, and therefore improving the time I completed the course in. I earned myself the glide tights in short order, and I tried the course wearing both the shirt and the tights, and it was very juicy.
Bro, look at my mobility. It's OP.
I shaved about 2 seconds off my time as a result. There was a shrine up here too, another nude shrine, but I was at least able to maintain modesty thanks to the dim lighting. I attached a light to my shield to help me see as I took out the constructs.
Is one gonna fall? Yep.
I took a photo of the ancient writing as I fell.
Is it falling into the chasm? It fell into the chasm.
I figured I was due another visit to the depths, so I followed it down.
Stop trying to zuck me through the tree. You can't. You suck. I got it.
I did some big spinnies to take out his pimples.
Oh yeah. Toolin hit him in the eye. Like a boss. Coming in clutch.
And so with some elite plays from my guy Toolin, we took down the beast. His fang was a plus 24 damage fusible, not too bad. I fast traveled to Lookout Landing and claimed my final stamina vessel, maxing out my stamina at 3 full wheels. And I headed out to do something unwise. On the way I found a couple of Koroks, an Ascension one and a Dandelion one. And soon I was in the heat of battle, quite literally, attempting to take down the flame Gleeok I had spotted earlier. Their heads are the vulnerable spot, and I unfortunately didn't have any particularly good bows, so this was honestly a bad plan. I resorted to shooting bomb arrows, and I actually managed to take out all 3 heads, stunning the beast.
Okay. I actually got him down. Did I? Where the hell did he go? I thought he fell.
He did fall, the entire way down the cliff, and when he returned he'd completely forgotten about our battle, and fully restored his health. What a rude bloke. Since it took me about 8 years and tons of resources to take out only 1/3 of his health, I decided I'd misjudge, and I actually was still not ready to take out the big fella, so I bailed. I spotted a shrine and off I went. This was a shrine of cube stacking, which is harder than it sounds. Only the cubes with the lattice can be climbed, so it took me perhaps a little too long to figure out a setup that worked for me, but eventually I triumphantly climbed the wall. Look at this absolute schmozzle of a construct to help President Hudson with his back problems. Wonderful stuff. I got into an epic battle with this Lionel, where my go-to strategy was headshotting him so I could jump on his back and whack him repeatedly. It was working for me, but I was burning through all the fairies I collected in the process.
Oh, it's a good thing I got like 8 fairies for some reason.
After breaking a couple of weapons and chewing through a fair amount of health food, we took down the big fella.
Well, 3 times bow is pretty good.
I checked out the map and spotted some sky islands above the Hebra region that I hadn't visited, so I decided to investigate.
There's a Gleeok. Oh my gosh, change directions. Change directions. I don't know if I'm gonna make it this way.
I managed to just make it to this archipelago over here, where I finally worked out you can shield grind on railings. And I found a 4th Sage's Will before flying over to another nearby island. This one was quite tall. Once I finally climbed to the top of it, I fought a tier 3 construct soldier for the first time. And I drained the water, resulting in some floppy fish which I happily collected.
I can't believe we murdered the fish like that. It's outrageous.
I claimed a cheeky Korok and then blasted my way into the island's interior, where it was rather dark, but I had some mirrors at my disposal. I bounced the light around from mirror to mirror and finally pointed it into this room where I found a Zonite helm, which increases battery efficiency when worn. I shined the light at the switch and opened up a way down to a shrine, and this shrine was a freebie. I grabbed this skydive Korok and headed over to another nearby island to fight this flux construct, and out of nowhere it was a tier 3. I'm pretty sure up until this point I'd only fought tier 1s, so it was quite the jump. The key difference was he did extremely high floaty shenanigans. I simply could not reach that high, even with Ascend, so I resorted to shooting bomb arrows at the flying square, which did the trick.
Oh, he's rolling. Oh my gosh, plus 32, Flux Core 3 Smasher.
This fella had a shrine crystal, so I loaded it onto this ready-made vehicle that was nearby and took off to return the crystal home.
Oh crap. No!
My second attempt was equally dodgy, but before the crystal could fall, I managed to hit recall and I was able to pluck it out of the air. I bounced between little islands collecting. I found another dangly chest with an old map, and a non-dangly chest with one too. And I collected another Korok before zooming over to this island to take yet another photo of yet more ancient writings. I fast traveled to Lookout Landing and used the 4 Sage's Wills I'd collected to improve Toolin's Sage's power, which made his damage higher. Great news for his regular headshots. I added one more energy well to my batteries, and then visited old mate Wordsworth in Kakariko. I showed him the 3 photos I'd collected and he was thrilled. Apparently the texts were random tidbits about ancient living back in Raru's day, but I must admit I did not really care. He gave me 100 rupees per photo though, so that was nice. I paid a visit to the depths via this chasm, and once there I spotted something unexpected.
Marbled Goma. Wait, is this just the boss again?
So now that I'd beaten the fire temple, there were some random marbled gomas loose in the wild. It was a matter of taking out the marbled legs, much like the original boss fight, and of course wailing on the Eye of Sauron with great vengeance. I earned myself a marbled leg, which fused to add a whopping 38 damage to this weapon, and 100 energy crystals. Very juicy. I activated a nearby light route and had an explore, and I soon laid eyes on a peculiar fortress up amongst these big rocks. I used these bouncy thingos to get up there. It was some kind of Yiga hideout, featuring a hut with a weird glowy symbol lock on the door. I attached a Keese eyeball to an arrow and... Picking off that bloke opened up the door, behind which I found 20 crystallized charges and an auto-build schematic for a bouncy contraption. I continued on, collecting some nice weapons from apparition weirdos, and of course a ton of pose, and soon I was at another boss arena. This fella was only tier 2 though, so when I did the floaty nonsense, it was low enough that I could ascend and make short work of the vulnerable cube. I activated another light route, and decided I'd had my fill of fun in the depths, so I fast traveled to Kakariko and struck out south in the sunshine. I found a rock Korok, I helped President Hudson stand to attention, and I found this bloke.
Hey. He be drumming. BB be dumb.
He wanted 3 Corsa bee honey, and I happened to have that on me, so I fulfilled his wish immediately, and he went on his way. I found another rock Korok atop a rather wet hill. I cleared out Fort Hutno Cave, where I fought my first rock-encrusted Lyklak, and I caught up with Captain Hoz and his boys, and I helped them out defeating these monster forces, earning 100 rupees for my contribution. In the wee hours of the morning on day 72, I took out a Hinox. I found a stump Korok, and I found my second Great Fairy, who had also been lied to by a fake Princess Zelda. This one would only consider emerging if she heard the pleasant sound of a drum. Fortunately, I knew a bloke. I climbed to this shrine halfway up the mountain. It was a shield combat training session, where I learned I could parry reflect projectiles. I found my first Korok puzzle where the objective was to unplug the bath, and I used a very effective rocket technique to achieve my aim. And I wandered over to the Dueling Peaks stable, where I found the musical troupe had grown. That horny bloke I saved from the hole was here, as was my honey-loving friend with the drums.
What could possibly go wrong? Easy. No worries, guys. Can't believe you doubted me.
I got the troop and their now seaworthy cart over to the Great Fairy, where their splendid tunes inspired the big girl to emerge. I immediately had her upgrade some stuff, most notably the soldier's pants, which I was fond of wearing for its high armor. I found old mate Big Bird chilling on top of the stables, and he gave me a quest to clear out the Yiga hideout somewhere in the Dueling Peaks nearby, so I headed out to track them down. But I never tracked them down, I got slightly distracted. I bridged the gap between these star-crossed lovers, I fought some monsters, and I was bamboozled by this shrine riddle.
Give keys born of water to the 3 altars. The sacred shrine will appear.
It took me a while, but I eventually worked out I needed to place various sized chunks of ice into these slots, and the shrine materialized. After my ice efforts, it was a freebie. I fought another battle talus, and once I finally cleaned off his parasites and climbed on his back, I absolutely demolished him with the marbled Goma weapon. I found a stump Korok, and when I spotted old mate Zappy Dragon going into the depths, I curiously followed him.
What are you doing, bro? What are you about?
I didn't exactly get an answer to my question. I guess the yellow noodle just likes a joy flight down in the depths every now and then, but I did find another Yiga clan fortress. This one had a couple of nerds zooming about on funky little scooters. I collected some crystallized charges and another schematic for my efforts, and I had a joyride on this flamethrower scooter. I activated a nearby light route, and then headed back upstairs because it was now nighttime and I wanted to kill this Stalnox. My ceaseless random exploring continued, and I found myself helping yet another Korok return to his bestie. My strategy was less than optimal. There was no way I was going to get this janky vehicle up the hill unless I carried it myself, so that's what I did. And then I spent ages confused by this rock and this hole. I was quite certain it was a Korok puzzle, but I couldn't figure it out, so I headed into the nearby shrine. This shrine was a good one. I had to ride the rails with funky contraptions of my own design. The first one was powered by gravity, but the second, some fans.
Let's try not to hit our head. This is my worst nightmare in like a roller coaster at a theme park. The roller coaster shrine. Big fan, big fan.
I used an elite combo of crates and boulders to help President Hudson overcome his vertical challenges, and I headed over to the Poplar Foothills Skyview Tower. This one was out of commission and needed a repair, but after completing this apple offering Korok puzzle, I fortunately found the technician trapped in a cave. I freed the silly goose and went sky high, unveiling another section of the big old map. And I of course used my height to visit a nearby island, taking a photo of some more ancient writings before dropping down to assault this monster fort. As always, it was a happy time of headshots, and I still had that marbled Goma weapon that hit for like 70 damage, so it was slapping big time. Big surprise this, I next reunited more Koroks. Honestly, there are too many dingus Koroks getting stranded, this is outrageous. I also collected a time trial Korok in this big hollow log. I headed towards the 4th geoglyph, depicting a big fishy, where I found a rock Korok, and over here, the dragon's tear. And this memory introduced a new character, Ganondorf.
Hyrule will bow down before me.
not! It's a swarm!
So brute force will not be enough.
I then jumped in a well, but there was something strange about this well. I wasn't in the mood for the depths, and I decided it was time to head towards another story quest, so I struck out northeast through the wetlands.
Oi, what the?
There were a number of fallen Sky Island chunks with chests in them throughout the wetland, so I collected from them while nudging this silly goose along on his raft until he was finally reunited with his bud. There were some black bokoblins to fight over here. These are one tier stronger than the blue fellas, and they also have majestic horns. And soon I had traversed the wetlands and arrived at this shrine. This one demonstrated what seemed like over-the-top water floaty physics. I once did this with a soccer ball in a pool and it hit me on the nose. This cave of dinguses proved very easy to defeat, but this boulder-tastic President Hudson was quite the challenge.
There we go. Jump in this hole because jumping in holes is fun.
In this hole I found a light root and another marbled goma. This one seemed a little harder for some reason, but I think it's just because I was using a weaker weapon, and it used this cheeky move where it trapped me. But I was victorious and pleased to earn another juicy weapon part fuse plus 100 more crystallized charges. I traded in the charges I'd accumulated for 2 more battery energy wells, and then continued my journey towards the Zora, fighting a bunch of monsters as I went. I cleared a cave, you know the drill, a bubble gem and that. I helped Hudson, and the monstrosity I built for this one got a little out of hand if we're honest, and I built a rather enormous ramp to get a hapless Korok over to his lover. As I continued along the river, I began seeing weird purple sludge, and the river itself was an unusually dirty hue. I fought a black Lizalfoss, and was amazed to find its horn fused for a solid plus 26 damage, even though it's a relatively easy monster to defeat. And when I found this chest mired in sludge, I discovered chucking a splash fruit cleaned up the mess. I found 2 caves rather close to each other, and took out a number of monsters in each, and I fought a great many Lizalfoss, which I was quite pleased about, because I kept getting these tasty 20+ damage bows to add to my arsenal.
This is a shrine cave. The shrine cave combo. It's quite rare.
Before returning the green turd, I got very distracted climbing this random wall, because I wanted to see what was up the top, and it was another entrance, or I guess an exit in this case. And when exploring this area, I found a completely new cave, and this one was absolutely enormous. It had multiple rocky like-likes, this random flooded area, and delightfully a chest with the climbing boots in it. But that wasn't it, the cave just kept going, and I randomly exited on the far side of this mountain. I glided back around and got back to business, zooming along to claim this freebie shrine before finally making my approach to the majestic Zora's domain. I hit up the shrine first, in which I harnessed the power of water to charge up a battery. Honestly, big respect to this shrine for its use of renewable energy. And I placed the battery to first open this door to get at the chest, and then to power up this elevator granting access to the end of the shrine. These Zora were stressing about the strange curse upon the land.
Sludge falling from the sky, I've noticed.
I cleaned the sludge off this majestic statue and chatted to Yona up here. She gave me the Zora armor, which lets you swim up waterfalls, but apparently not sludgy waterfalls, so I had to climb up to find Prince Sidon the old-fashioned way, with ascension magic. I wandered into this ravine-like cave, and it was perpetually drippy, so the walls were slippery, and I was intent on climbing those walls, so I may have been mildly annoyed.
Were these wet caves? Are the bane of my existence.
It was worth it though.
Ooh, baby! We got the full climber set now. This guy climbs stuff, there's no doubt about it.
I climbed my way to Mifa Court, where I found Sidon.
It's good to see you, my friend.
Sidon was busy holding back the taint of the sludge, and he sent me off to visit the historian at Toto Lake. I completed the nearby shrine, which had these floaty devices that I made use of to cross a few gaps, and to make a bridge for this ball to make it across. By this point, I'd seen some content pop up about the game online, so I attempted to make a hover bike I'd seen people using, with 2 fans attached to a control stick. I used it to zoom over to this region's Skyview Tower, and it turns out it is indeed quite good. Once there, I rescued this nerd from some sludge, and then I popped skyward, unveiling this eastern area of the map.
I just went straight past the ball. Ooh, there's a hole in the ball, and there's a shrine in the hole, the holy ball.
The ball shrine was straightforward. I just had to make a flying device with which to soar through to the end. I made my way back to Toto Lake, where this bloke was examining this broken slate, so I helped him out, and it turned out the slate read like a riddle.
Stand up on the land of the skyfish and behold its lofty view. Among the floating rocks you see a droplet waits for you. Through this droplet shoot an arrow with the mark of the king. Do this task and you shall reveal a most wondrous thing.
He suggested I seek out King Dorephan to see about this mark of the king. On the way I collected a Korok from the heights of Zora's domain, and I headed into the king's throne room. But instead of a resplendent royal, I found 3 little gremlins playing a game. I snuck up and eavesdropped, and learned they were talking about the king who'd apparently fought some sludge beast and gone to hide in a secret cave. Following these clues I went searching, and eventually spotted this hole in which I discovered the pristine sanctum, and the beat up king alongside his trusted advisor Muzu. The king gave me one of his scales, apparently that's the king's mark from the riddle, and I was now on the hunt for the land of the skyfish, which I soon spotted over here. I swam up the waterfall and had a look around for the droplet.
Oh yeah. I'll do it.
I fused one of the king scales to an arrow and shot it through, and this revealed the way to a spot down in the water below. I returned to Sidon, whose fiancée Yona was trying to convince him to let her take over holding back the sludge so he could help stop the sludge at its source, when out of nowhere...
Look at that beautiful boy. Sludge-like, ambusher of me for court.
The prince lent me his power of water, with which I gave the like a bath, and we slapped it to death. Yona insisted Sidon must stop being fearful of losing those he loves, and so he agreed to trust her with holding back the sludge, character development, and all that. And so off we went to save the day, except I got distracted fighting the monster forces at this fort. And then it was time to save the day. I headed over to the beam of light, and Sidon did that thing where you zoom around really fast and create a whirlpool, and into the whirlpool I jumped. I found myself in the ancient Zora waterworks. I climbed up to this pipe system and waded through and unclogged it, allowing water to fill up the cavern, meaning I could reach the console, which shot a beam up to the islands floating way above, causing water to fall. And this was my ticket upstairs.
Look at that salmon flop up the river. What are these? Oh, it's low gravity up here.
And so I enjoyed a lot of bubble transport and low gravity silly willies as I progressed towards the water temple. I fought a bunch of constructs too, and I decided to fuse one of those black lizard horns I found earlier to this 30 damage Zora spear.
Ooh, 52 damage spear. 8. Oh, it's... Wait, what?
Zora weapons deal double damage when wet, and since I was constantly floating around in bubbles and throwing splash fruit at sludge, I was pretty wet. I ended up on cleanup duty with a hydrant too, and in the process, I found an old map. I also kept finding quite high damage weapons to replace the relatively crappy ones I was hanging on to, so it felt good to have a decent stock of upgrades. And I soon made it to a shrine near which I admired the climb so far. The shrine was a bubbly one. I had to recall one bubble, and I had to build a ramp so that this bubble would zoom off at the correct angle. That was shrine 52, by the way. It was then time to enjoy the assistance of some vomiting fish to make my way through the skies. I found another old map, I took out a bunch more tier 3 constructs, and I built another bubble ramp to proceed past this area. And after one final battle, we headed up to the water temple. This is the source of the Zora's clean water, but only one faucet was running. So the ancient water sage invaded our minds to helpfully let us know we needed to activate the other 4 faucets.
4 faucets, 4 faucets, 4 faucets.
The first was in this room, where I had to transport this ball over some spikes and pin it into the hole in the wall using one of these floaty things, which opened the door to this spinny thing at which I splashed some water, activating one of the faucets. I headed up to this floating chunk and took out some constructs before being bamboozled by this situation, where I was pretty sure I needed to get the big ball up there, but I couldn't see a way to achieve that. So I moved on and was equally bamboozled by these bubbles that didn't take me anywhere, until I finally realized I needed to clear away some sludge. So by activating Sidon's water power, my throwing spear was imbued with water, which I was able to throw at the sludge, unleashing a waterfall, allowing me to zip on up. I killed this out of place fire like, ascended up, and arrived at an area with a bunch of enemies and an aggressively spinning tower. I worked out there was a switch in the tower, and rather than figure out how to stop it spinning, I simply shot a bomb arrow at it, which did the trick, lowering the water and revealing another mechanism to turn.
Well done, Link. Now you just need to open the remaining 2.
Well done. Now you just need to open the remaining 2.
For one of those remaining 2, I got this thing spinning, which generated some electricity, which I conducted using a big old bubble. And here's my assessment of this game's dungeons.
Kind of just like slightly bigger shrines. The lead up to the dungeons is actually cooler than the dungeons themselves. But I do like the dungeons. The boss fights are very cool as well.
I returned to the part that had bamboozled me, and from this higher vantage point, I immediately realized what I had missed. This bubble generator needed some sludge removal. I sent the ball on up and followed shortly after. And for this puzzle, I had to get the wall here to stay up using this floaty thing, which lowered the water enough for the ball to nestle in the hole, which opened the gate, which allowed me to turn the wheel. 4 faucets activated. 5 faucets total, producing all that sweet, clean water. I headed over and got them pouring.
Who we're versing? Is it? It's Muck, the Pokemon. What the heck? Why is it so small? Oh, okay, that's more like it.
I sprayed water at the beast, which exposed the little weirdo, who waddled like crazy to try and find the safety of more muck. In phase 2, things got a little dicey, as sludge sprayed everywhere, slowing me down, and the boss let out a vicious spray. But I managed to stun it again, and I whipped out my 82 damage spear, which made short work of the second half of its health bar.
Of course he ends with a giant bout of flatulence. You would, you little diarrhea creature.
The water cleared up, a heart container for me, a secret stone for the new Sage of Water, Sidon. You know the drill by now. And of course a new ring for my fancy hand, so the Sage's power can come with me wherever I go. Zora's domain was healed of the sludge, and the king's health improved too. Also, the king was no longer the king because he made Sidon the king. I ran around collecting all the side quests that had popped up, and this silly Korok pair had popped out of nowhere too, so I reunited them, using a wonderful technique to get this fella down the hill. Two of the side quests I'd picked up were to track down the Zora helm and Zora pants, and apparently one of them was on the Skyfish. So I searched it all over, and after way too long, I finally found this hole in the side, in which I picked up the helm. I found a hole boulder, and a nearby tree thingo to put it on, which found me a Korok. I found another Korok, a rock one, atop this hill, and I dived back into the whirlpool, because apparently the Zora pants were down here somewhere. I soon found a way to drop down to a deeper cave, where I found a luminous stone talus, and found the greaves in a chest behind this waterfall. I paid a visit to Lookout Landing, where I bought some more weapon space from this excellent dancer, and I bought 2 more hearts too, before fast traveling back to the water temple, from which I glided down to the nearby Lanayru Sky Archipelago. I fought a Flux Construct too, I found yet another old map, and I collected a Skydive Korok before I decided it was time to head southeast. I fought a Conga Lion on the way, and I made use of a Puff Shroom to bamboozle the boss, allowing me to sneak attack him and take him out in pretty much one hit.
He just got smoked. Woo. Oh, Black Boss, 27 fuse power. Nice.
I found a shrine tucked down here where I had to transport the ball on wings.
Oh, crap.
Not like that though, and the second room called for an easy triple fan glide. I soared above the land, and where should I come to ground but right next to an idiot who needed a lift. I built him a magnificent raft. I soon spied my first silver enemy of the playthrough. For some reason he had a yellow pom-pom on his head. I used the Puff Shroom technique again, and despite how dumb it looks, I wasn't complaining, because that pom-pom was useful for a juicy plus 31 damage fuse. I headed into this snowy region, where I built an all-terrain vehicle which I used to scale the frosty mountain. This Korok scammed a lift halfway, and after dropping him off I carried on, except I got tired of the drive soon enough, so I took a ride on this boulder to get some height, which I used to glide over to the Skyview Tower. Another region unveiled on the map, and another excuse to hit up some sky islands. This island invited me to shield surf, straight into nothing. It seemed unwise, but I was willing to give it a try. I fused a sled to my shield and off I went. The course continued down the mountain, and I think it's fair to say my snowboarding skills are at least a 3 out of 10. And upon completion of the course, a shrine materialized. This was another naked shrine. The highlight was that I made a weapon with a giant spiky piece of metal attached to it, and it was excellent for whacking idiots. I popped up from the Skyview Tower again to visit some more sky islands. The one I landed on first had this magnificent vehicle, which I flew over to another skydiving challenge. With both the glide shirt and pants, this one was pretty easy.
Oh gosh.
Except for that time that I went splat. I still managed to unlock the glide mask, completing the set. I claimed a Skydive Korok and saw a shrine on the mountainside far below, so off I went. This shrine featured slidey cube movement on the wall so that I could ascend, and slab finagling to make a ramp so I could escape jail. After that sojourn to the surface, I once again returned to the Sky Archipelago because I had unfinished business. I found a dangly chest old map, and another of these big chunky islands from which I stole a green turd. In an unusual twist, when I returned the crystal, this shrine was not a freebie shrine. There were puzzles to be puzzled by. I had to create ice to slide over the spikes and hit the targets. The first was straightforward, but the second one I kept misjudging. I couldn't quite get the angles right. It was a rather lazy slide from halfway down the slope that eventually hit the target. I found this dangly chest, and rather than positioning my floaty platform beneath it, I opted for some recoil shenanigans to stop it from falling to the earth below. And I managed to grab it with Ultra Hand and claim the alt map from inside it. With that, I was done with the sky of this area. So I figured it was time for a trip to the depths. I picked up a light route and took out a nearby flux construct, and it was only tier 2, so it was child's play, obviously.
Oh, he does drop items. I swear I shot at one of those earlier. I think it's only one at a time, right? I swear I shot at one of those earlier and they didn't drop anything.
I wandered through the depths for a bit, collecting as I went. But soon I decided that was enough, apparently, and back to the surface I went, where I glided straight for Robbie's ancient tech lab in Huttonor village. He made the promised improvement to my Puripad and added a sensor, which detects nearby shrines, which I immediately made use of to find this nearby shrine downstairs, and I grabbed the quest to unlock some more improvements. I was able to unlock Hero's Path immediately, as I'd already found more than 15 shrines, and this tracked my movements since my journey started. As you can see, I've done a fair bit of meandering.
Let's go. This is a flawless. Wow, that was beautiful.
I found another Korok atop this palm tree, and I found a message in a bottle from a stranded adventurer who pleaded with me to follow the trail of bright blooms. So I made a raft and off I went. And it was quite a distance before I spotted the cave.
Oh, it's not working. Oh, it worked.
I headed into the cave, collected some tasty minerals, and soon found the problem. The silly goose had been trapped behind this boulder. He was very grateful and rewarded me 100 rupees. I continued along the coast. I threw some pebbles on the beach, and I found another boulder in a hole with a little tree stand thingo nearby. So I found the Korok, and immediately fast traveled to where I'd marked the confusing boulder from earlier. I'd now found 2 more hole boulders, so I was pretty sure I'd completely missed the tree stand thingo at the first one. And sure enough, there it was, another Korok seed in the bag. I returned to Hatano village after that rather long distraction and wandered around meeting the locals. I headed into the village shrine where I had to stick a ball to a spinny thing, and I also dug out a bunch of balls to access this chest, only to receive a rather crappy weapon. I then headed into the east well, and discovered there was a rather large cave system beneath the village. In fact, I spent about 8 in-game hours exploring it, killing monsters and collecting goodies. And when I emerged, I realized there are actually multiple town wells, all connected to the same giant underground area. I paid a visit to the school Princess Zelda set up. It was looking pretty fancy, and I noticed there were an abundance of mushrooms everywhere, including on people's heads, and I soon learned why. Cece's fashion house was in town, and apparently her thing is mushrooms. Out of nowhere, the mayor burst in, raging at her because her bright art pieces were keeping the veggies awake, and veggies are the foundation of Hatano's culture. Cece claimed fashion would now be Hatano's cultural strong point, and demanded an election to see who the town wanted as their leader. For my part, I considered what I was hearing to be profoundly random.
Oh, what is this drama, bro? This drama's out of control.
I got roped into the competition, as Cece had me handing out mushrooms to unconvinced townfolk, which I began doing immediately because I've always wanted to distribute shrooms.
Alright, is the weirdo. Oh, the dye guy is very ugly.
Old Mate can change the color of clothing items, and he can also change your paraglider fabric. I had a few on hand that I collected in my travels, so I decided to try out the horse god fabric.
What the heck? He's putting me in the chimney.
I paid a visit to the house that belonged to Link back in Breath of the Wild, and it now seemed to belong to Princess Zelda, and in the well out back, I made an interesting find.
Put in an order for a new and improved champion's tunic. Hide it in the throne room so he won't find it.
There was also a hairband, allowing me to tie my luscious hair up. Amazing stuff. There was another Korok to help here, and honestly I couldn't be bothered. But I get overtaken by a compulsion to do the thing while it's in front of me while I'm playing this game. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's a strong compulsion, trust me. So I gave the little bloke a lift up the hill. I admired this donkey, and had a chat to Mayor Reed, who also wanted help with his campaign. He believed if I could create a signature food with a creamy, melty mouthfeel, it would secure him the victory. So he asked for my help. Honestly, the politics in this village are out of control. I found a rock Korok, and then headed into the Well Empire, and ascended into Mayor Reed's shed, because his wife was worried about him. Apparently he'd been spending lots of time locked in here, and she wanted to know what was up. Turns out he was working on a new variety of super pumpkin that resembled Cece's mushroom aesthetic, because he figured that'd resonate with the youth. Did I mention the politics in this village are unhinged? His wife was relieved, but also frustrated, as she wished he'd just get along with Cece. I slept until evening and then staked outside Cece's place, because her sister was worried about her. Apparently she was spending too much time out at night, and sure enough she soon wandered over to this silo and disappeared inside. I wasn't quite sure how to spy on her, so I went for the same ascend strategy down in the well, and it didn't pan out. She yelled at me for invading her silo. Once day broke, I investigated the silo further.
Oh, I was supposed to climb up here and then listen. I missed that window.
I slept until evening again, and this time my spy games were successful. I learned that she was whispering sweet nothings to some tasty fresh produce. She secretly loves them veggies.
Yeah. All my snooping around has revealed Cece and Reed have more in common than you would believe.
Cece's sister echoed what Reed's wife said. Why don't these two dinguses just work together? Why can't high fashion and delicious veggies join together in harmony? But I still needed to hand out more mushrooms for Cece and make Reed his special dish so that this absolute shambles of a quest chain could continue, and I was having trouble.
I don't know what the creamy mouth feel. So I think I'm just gonna bail from Hatano from now, and I'll come back and do this mayoral race nonsense later.
I took a photo of a choo-choo and showed it to Old Mate Handsome, and he used it as inspiration to design a new paraglider fabric. And I realized I had a bunch of other photos I'd already taken in my travels to show him, so I unlocked a bunch more. I decided to use the chicken design.
Look at that. This is the most foolproof support system anyone's ever seen in their entire life. Don't even worry about it.
I spent the day fighting, including against this gorgeous specimen who wanted me to paint him like one of those French girls. And this monster fort was actually kind of tough, as it had a lot of black and silver mobs. And on day 99, it was time.
Ah! No. I'm on fire. I'm on fire.
I made use of the triple shot bow I'd gotten from that Lionel earlier, and when all 3 heads are taken out, the beast falls to the ground, vulnerable to attack.
Oh crap, he's gusting me. Pidgey used gust.
I slowly wore the Gleok down, but things soon took a turn.
Bro, he's making the biggest fireball I've ever seen. Stop that. That's illegal. How am I supposed to deal with this crap? Can't reach him with my arrows.
I used the updraft from the fires the big fella was starting all over the place, and I managed to deal a good amount of damage to each head before the Lionel bow broke, and I took a giant fireball to the face. But fortunately, I was saved by my last fairy.
How did I not... Oh, no. I took 4 damage.
It's okay, we got back in there for round 2.
Come on. Take a hit. Alright, sit down. Oh, he died. Take some fall damage, big boy. 24 fuse from the wing, 30 from the flame horn. What? The flame horn of a Gleeok is worse than a silver bokoblin's horn. Are you serious?
I followed the flowers to find this Korok, before deciding it was about time I headed east towards the final dungeon in the Gerudo corner of the map. And so off I went, fighting nerds, finding Koroks, and clearing out caves on the way. And this cave was a little nightmarish.
Oh, there's gloom hands in here. Oh, lordy.
My strategy was to stand on this rock and shoot lots of bombs at the grabby fellas. It was effective.
What? Phantom Ganon. He's chilling behind a rock.
My strategy was to stand on this rock and shoot arrows at his head, although I grew tired of that eventually and headed down there to slap him to death. He dropped the Demon's King bow, which does damage equal to double your max hearts, and the Gloom sword, which wears its wielder's body down. That didn't sound pleasant, so I left that behind.
Woo! Phantom armor.
I continued on, and it was a tad frosty up this mountain. I fought my first silver moblin, and it dropped a horn with plus 33 fuse damage, and soon I was looking down on the Gerudo desert. I glided over to the Skyview Tower, and when I got there, Link was looking a little heat strokey, so I made some heat-resistant food out of chill shrooms to keep cool. I helped this goose get up the lift so we could repair the Skyview Tower, and up I popped, unveiling another region of the map, and gaining the height to glide over to this geoglyph depicting a man. In this memory, Ganondorf was pledging allegiance to King Rauru, and flinging backhanded compliments willy-nilly.
I believe that man's heart holds many dark ambitions. Just his name, even that, it gives me pause.
I am well aware of his evil nature. For that reason, and others, I want him close. It will be easier to keep an eye on him. There is nothing to worry about.
I couldn't help but feel that there were, in fact, some things to worry about. I glided on over to Karakara Bazaar, where I bought a Desert Vo headpiece which provides some heat resistance, and that was it. As I sold thousands of rupees worth of gems to old mate Beetle, 100 days were up. There is still a lot more content to get through. I've just arrived at the Gerudo Desert with plenty more story to unravel. There's about 80 or 90 more shrines, over 800 more Koroks, if you can believe that, and there are way more side quests than I was expecting too. So let me know if you want to see my journey continue towards 200 days. Check out the murder of many generations of sharks and the most glorious raft design you've ever seen in 200 Days of Raft, the movie.